Hey friends, it's Michael Kostroff. This week, I want to talk to my fellow worriers. If you're an anxiety sufferer or you worry a lot about what might happen or what might not happen in your career, and I think a lot of actors do, I want to talk to you about some of the ways that I have dealt with that and successfully dealt with that. And as you probably guess, it does not have anything to do with positive thinking or manifesting. For me, if I'm worried about something and I say it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, that doesn't really help. So I go the other way. I I always joke about how I prefer negative thinking, but in this case, what I mean is, if I can really take out what specifically I'm worried about and walk myself through the worst case scenario, I find that calming because that usually is not as dire as what it feels like. For example, I worry about being late, and I've sometimes been on the way to have lunch with a friend and running like 2 minutes late. And I feel anxious. I feel this anxiety. And so I have learned to say to myself, okay, what happens if you're late? If you're 2 minutes late to meet your friend? And the answer is nothing. Okay, so let's just take a breath and just enjoy the walk. We worry about a lot of things. I think there's a lot of the instability and the unpredictability of our career can foster this kind of stuff. And if you're worried that your agent's going to drop you, listen, that could happen. You think I've never been dropped by an agent? I've been dropped by several agents and managers. And I did live to tell the tale. My career didn't end. I did not die. So if you're anxious about that, the first thing I would say is why? What is it that's making you anxious about that? And the second thing is, okay, what happens if that happens? So that you take it out of this sort of abstract place of just worry and into a specific. And this is something that I've not only done with myself, but I've talked friends off the ledge this way when they've been, just generally worried about things. The second thing that helps is gaining information. I was talking to a friend recently, and I've forgotten the specifics, but part of it had to do with, like, she has to get some surgery. She goes, I don't know how long the recovery is. I said, great, you've identified something you can find out. Because when it's the unknown, it can feel like, oh, it's going to be shitty. And then she called the doctor, and she was like, oh, it's not long at all. She gained that information. Or she would have gained information that, okay, it's going to be a long recovery. Okay, that's what I got to set myself up for. So, I just recently moved out of the country. I moved to a new country. And it was, in the general sense, it was very overwhelming. But when I started to go, okay, how does a bank work there? How does, where do I want to live? What neighborhood? And just like sort of getting the things that I was like, I don't know how this works. I don't know how crossing the border works. And look it up, and gaining information was very, very calming for me. A therapist that I went to once talked to me about, she used the phrase current reality. I was in a session, and I was very, very poor, and I was very worried that I was going to lose my apartment or, go broke, be on the street, whatever. And she said, well, let me ask you this. Did you eat today? I said, well, yes, but that's not the point. I'm running out of money. She goes, uh-huh. Is your rent paid for this month? I'm like, yes, but eventually I'll have to pay it for the next month. And we went back and forth like this for a while. And she finally said, okay, here's what you're telling me. She said, what you're telling me is the current reality is fine. I went, yeah, but she said, let's just start here. Today, you're okay, right? I'm like, yes. She says, and we don't know what happens tomorrow. Is that true? Yes, fine. And I had to sort of give up the worry. And by the way, none of those things happened. None of those things I worried about happened. So I make a deal with myself when I'm feeling anxious, and I say, okay, you are allowed to panic the minute there's a crisis. Until then, shut the fuck up and enjoy yourself. Because lots of things could happen. We don't know. But the Southerners say, "Don't borrow trouble." That's a Southern expression, meaning don't borrow what might happen from the next day. Just concentrate on today's problems. I believe there's a verse in the Bible about sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, meaning we got enough shit to deal with today, rather than worrying about maybes, things that might happen. Again, I'm taking you through all this, and this video might not be for all of you, although my experience has been that a lot of actors really put themselves through the ringer over stuff that may or may not happen, through the unknown. I try to remind myself that just because something is unknown doesn't mean there's a crisis. It doesn't mean it's going to turn out badly. It could turn out fantastically. Who knows? There's another quote that I'm going to probably botch, and somebody out there will identify the source for me, please. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. A brave person only one. Meaning the coward is constantly worried about things, and again, the crises that don't show up, they don't happen. And the person who goes through their life bravely just has to face that once. And these are lessons that I've learned again and again, and I've had to put them into practice for myself. So I hope that is helpful, and I hope it applies to some, if not all of you. Right now, there's probably something about your career that you're worried about. Worried that a casting director hates you. Oh my God, that is so common when actors say, "I feel like I've been blacklisted." It's like, friends, casting directors are very busy. They're very busy. They're not making blacklists. They're not, they're just, when you say it out loud, you see how silly it is. You got to do a lot to get blacklisted by a casting director. I had a casting director friend who said, she told me about a guy who brought a gun to an audition, like a prop gun. And I said, so he was never asked back. She goes, oh, no, I just called his agent, told him to tell him never, don't do that again. But he's been back several times. I'm like, so that's another one. You can just kind of laugh at yourself about. I like when I'm worried about two potential jobs that conflict, and then I just have a good laugh because I'm like, nobody's offered you shit. Calm down. You probably are not getting either offer. So anyway, hope that's helpful. I will be back with more thoughts next week, and as always, love to read what you think about all this. Okay, bye.